Subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon, to never miss a video from us. Hi, welcome to our exam prep series. These practice questions are for the candidates preparing for Microsoft Azure Administrator AZ-104 certification exam. For complete practice test series you can visit our website testpreptraining.com. Question 1. Where can you obtain details about the personal data Microsoft processes, how Microsoft processes it, and for what purposes? 1. Microsoft Privacy Statement. 2. Compliance Manager. 3. Azure Service Health. 4. Trust Center. The correct answer is 1. Microsoft Privacy Statement. Question 2. You plan to automate the deployment of a virtual machine scale set that uses the Windows Server 2016 data center image. You need to ensure that when the scale set virtual machines are provisioned, they have web server components installed. Which two actions should you perform? 1. Modify the extension profile section of the Azure Resource Manager template. 2. Create an Azure policy. 3. Create an automation account. 4. Upload a configuration script. The correct answer is 1 and 3. Modify the extension profile section of the Azure Resource Manager template. And create an automation account. Question 3. Which workload option should you choose to run a network appliance on a virtual machine? 1. General purpose. 2. Compute optimized. 3. Memory optimized. 4. Storage optimized. The correct answer is 2. Compute optimized. Compute optimized virtual machines are designed to have a high CPU to memory ratio, suitable for medium traffic web servers, network appliances, batch processes, and application servers. Question 4. Suppose you have an existing application running locally on your own server. You need additional capacity but prefer to move to Azure instead of buying upgraded on-premises hardware. Which compute option would likely give you the quickest route to getting your application running in Azure? 1. Serverless computing. 2. Containers. 3. Virtual machines. The correct answer is 3. Virtual machines. Question 5. Imagine that you work on a photo sharing application that runs on millions of mobile devices. Demand is unpredictable because you see a spike in usage whenever a locally or nationally significant event occurs. Which Azure compute resource is the best match for this workload? 1. Serverless computing. 2. Containers. 3. Virtual machines. The correct answer is 1. Serverless computing. Question 6. What type of files are Resource Manager templates? 1. JSON. 2. XML. 3. HTML. Resource Manager templates are JSON files that define the resources you need to deploy for your solution. The template can then be used to easily recreate multiple versions of your infrastructure, such as staging and production. Question 7. True or false? For security reasons, you must use an image from the official Azure Marketplace when creating a new virtual machine. False. Azure lets you configure your virtual machines to meet your needs. This includes support for using your own VM images. Question 8. What is the effect of the default network security settings for a new virtual machine? 1. Neither outbound nor inbound requests are allowed. 2. Outbound requests are allowed. Inbound traffic is only allowed from within the virtual network. 3. There are no restrictions, all outbound and inbound requests are allowed. The correct answer is 2. Outbound requests are considered low risk, so they are allowed by default. Inbound traffic from within the virtual network is allowed. By placing a VM in a virtual network, the VM owner is implicitly opting into communication among the resources in the virtual network. Question 9. Tags applied at a resource group level are propagated to resources within the resource group. Is it correct or incorrect? It's incorrect. Question 10. You cannot use the async blob copy service to copy files between storage accounts or from outside publicly accessible locations to your Azure storage account. Is it correct or incorrect? It's incorrect. Question 11. You have an Azure subscription named Subscription 1 that contains an Azure Log Analytics workspace named Workspace 1. You need to view the error events from a table named Event. Which query should you run in Workspace 1? The correct answer is 2. Question 12. You have an Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, tenant named Adatum, and an Azure subscription named Subscription 1. Adatum contains a group named Developers. Subscription 1 contains a resource group named Dev. You need to provide the developers group with the ability to create Azure Logic apps in the Dev resource group. Solution: on Subscription 1, you assign the Logic App Operator role to the developers group. Does this meet the goal? Incorrect, it will not. Question 13. Suppose you have several Linux virtual machines hosted in Azure. You will administer these VMs remotely over SSH, from 3 dedicated machines in your corporate headquarters. Which of the following authentication methods would typically be considered best practice for this situation? 1. Username and password. 2. Private key. 3. Private key with passphrase. The correct answer is 3. Private key with passphrase. Private key access with a passphrase is the most secure option. Even if an attacker requires your private key, they will be unable to use it without the passphrase. Question 14. When creating a Windows virtual machine in Azure, which port would you open, using the inbound port rules, in order to allow remote desktop access? 1. HTTPS. 2. SSH, 22. 3. RDP, 3389. The correct answer is 3. RDP, 3389. The Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, uses port 3389 by default, so this port is the standard port you would open if you wanted to use an RDP client to administer your Windows virtual machines. Question 15. What is the final rule that is applied in every network security group? 1. Allow all. 2. Deny all. 3. You configure the final rule to your need. The correct answer is 2. Deny all. This is a safe choice. It will block all traffic that you don't specifically allow. Question 16. Suppose you're an administrator of several Azure virtual machines. You get a text message indicating some problems with your VMs. You are at a friend's house and only have your tablet with you. True or false, you'll still be able to access the Azure CLI using the tablet, even though you can't install the CLI on it. True. The Azure Cloud Shell is available in the browser and runs with the full Azure CLI. If you prefer PowerShell, the Azure Cloud Shell has that as well. Question 17. Azure Load Balancer can be deployed only with a public front-end IP address, and not private. Is it correct, or incorrect? It is incorrect. Question 18. You cannot use the async blob copy service to copy files between storage accounts, or from outside publicly accessible locations, to your Azure storage account. Is it correct, or incorrect? It is incorrect. Question 19. Suppose you have a script that creates several VMs with different images. When the script issues the command to create the first VM, you do not want to block the script while the VM is created, instead you want the script to immediately move on to the next command. What is the best way to do this? 1. Add the async argument to your create command. 2. Use the ampersand to run the process in the background. 3. Add the no-wait argument to your create command. The correct answer is 3. Add the no-wait argument to your create command. Adding no-wait will cause Azure VM Create to return immediately, without waiting for the VM to actually be created. Question 20. Most Azure commands return JSON by default. Sometimes, this dataset can be very large, which makes it difficult to read. and tricky to use the result of one command as input to another command. What can you use with Azure CLI to filter the results to get only the data that you need? 1. You can use the query argument. 2. You can use the filter argument. 3. You can pipe the results to a JSON parsing utility and use filtering capability there. The correct answer is 1. All Azure commands support the query argument, which lets you select the useful data in any Azure command response. Question 21. Which of the following protocols provides dynamic routing for Azure ExpressRoute? 1. IPVPN. 2. PPTP. 3. Border Gateway Protocol. 4. IPsec. 5. S-Key. The correct answer is 3. Border Gateway Protocol. Border Gateway Protocol is an industry-standard dynamic routing protocol that can exchange routes between your on-premises network, your instances in Azure, and Microsoft public addresses. Question 22. Azure Public Peering allows you to connect to services with public IP addresses without your traffic being routed over the Internet. Is it correct or incorrect? Correct. Azure Public Peering enables private connections to services that are available on public IP addresses. Some examples of services that support this are Azure Storage and Azure SQL databases. Question 23. Suppose you have two video files stored as blobs. One of the videos is business critical and requires a replication policy that creates multiple copies across geographically diverse data centers. The other video is non-critical, and a local replication policy is sufficient. To satisfy these constraints, the two blobs will need to be in separate storage accounts. Is it correct or incorrect? It is correct. Question 24. Which of the following services provides up-to-date status information about the health of Azure services? 1. Compliance Manager. 2. Azure Monitor. 3. Service Trust Portal. 4. Azure Service Health. The correct answer is 4. Azure Service Health. Question 25. You need to resolve the licensing issue before you attempt to assign the license again. What should you do? 1. From the Groups blade, invite the user accounts to a new group. 2. From the Profile blade, modify the usage location. 3. From the Directory role blade, modify the directory role. 4. None of these. The correct answer is 1. From the Groups blade, invite the user accounts to a new group. Question 26. You have an Azure Virtual Network named VNet1 that connects to your on-premises network by using a site-to-site VPN. The VNet1 contains one subnet named Subnet1. Subnet1 is associated to a network security group named NSG1. Subnet1 contains a basic internal load balancer named ILB1. ILB1 has 3 Azure virtual machines in the backend pool. Now the task is that you need to collect data about the IP addresses that connects to ILB1. You must be able to run interactive queries from the Azure portal against the collected data. What should you do? Select the best sources to create and enable the diagnostics on. The resources to create are as follows: an Azure Event Grid, an Azure Log Analytics Workplace, an Azure Storage Account. Resources on which to enable diagnostics are ILB1, NSG1, the Azure Virtual Machines. Remember, you need to select the best pair of resources to create and enable the diagnostics on. Your options are: 1. Resource to create, an Azure Event Grid. Resources on which to enable diagnostics, an SG1. 2. Resource to create, an Azure Storage Account. Resources on which to enable diagnostics, the Azure Virtual Machines. 3. Resource to create, an Azure Log Analytics Workplace. Resources on which to enable diagnostics, ILB1. 4. Resource to create, an Azure Log Analytics Workplace. Resources on which to enable diagnostics, the Azure Virtual Machines. The correct answer is 2. Resource to create an Azure storage account. Resources on which to enable Diagnostics, the Azure virtual machines. Question 27. You need to resolve the Active Directory issue. What should you do? 1. From Active Directory users and computers, select the user accounts, and then modify the user principal name value. 2. Run idfix.exe, and then use the edit action. 3. From Active Directory domains and trusts, modify the list of UPN suffixes. 4. From Azure AD Connect, modify the outbound synchronization rule. The correct answer is 2. Run idfix.exe, and then use the edit action. Question 28. You plan to support many connections to your company's automatically used, up to 5 instances, when CPU utilization on the instances exceeds 70% for 10 minutes. When CPU utilization decreases, the solution must automatically reduce the number of instances. What should you do from the Azure portal? Read the following steps and then arrange them in the correct sequence. The correct sequence is: first step 3, then step 1, then step 2. Question 29. You want to create a reusable template that uses the custom script extension to configure web content on a VM. What's the best way to enable deployments to specify the script that configures web content? 1. Provide a parameter that specifies the script location. 2. Provide a variable that specifies the script location. 3. Provide a default script location in your template, and then use a nested template to override that location. The correct answer is 1. Provide a parameter that specifies the script location. Parameters promote reuse. Their values are filled in when the template runs. Question 30. For which type of disk does Azure restart the VM in order to change the caching type? 1. Data. 2. Operating system. 3. Temporary. 4. Zone redundant storage. The correct answer is 2. Operating system. Changing the cache setting of the OS disk requires a VM restart. Question 31. Suppose you are using Azure PowerShell to manage a VM. You have a local object that represents the VM, and you've made several updates to that local object. Which PowerShell CMDlet would you use to apply those local changes to the actual VM? 1. Update AZ-VM. 2. Set AZ-VM. 3. New AZ-VM. The correct answer is 1. Update AZ-VM. This CMDlet updates the state of an Azure virtual machine to the state of a virtual machine object. Question 32. When you enable Azure Disk Encryption on a Windows virtual machine (VM), what does it use to encrypt the data on your virtual hard disks? 1. dmcrypt. 2. BitLocker. 3. Azure Key Vault. The correct answer is 2. BitLocker. Windows VMs are encrypted using BitLocker. Question 33. To use Azure Key Vault with ADE, what policy do you need to set? 1. Configure an access policy to permit at least one security principal. 2. Create an access policy to allow template deployment. 3. Set the Key Vault access policy to support disk encryption. The correct answer is 3. Set the Key Vault access policy to support disk encryption. You must set the access policy on the Azure Key Vault to allow disk encryption with ADE. Question 34. You have a basic app service plan, named ASP1, that hosts an Azure app service named App1. You need to configure a custom domain and enable backups for App1. What should you do first? Should you start with configuring a web job for App1? Or 2. Scale out ASP1? Or 3. Scale up ASP1? Or should you configure the application settings for App1? The correct answer is 4. Configure the application settings for App1. Question 35. You have an Azure subscription named Subscription 1, that contains an Azure Virtual Network, named VNet 1. VNet 1 connects to your on-premises network, by using Azure ExpressRoute. You need to connect VNet 1, to the on-premises network, by using a site-to-site VPN. The solution must minimize cost. Which 3 actions should you perform? The correct 3 options to minimize cost are: A. Create a local site VPN gateway. B. Create a VPN gateway that uses the VPN GW1 SKU. And E. Create a connection. Question 36. You plan to deploy a site-to-site VPN connection, from on-premises network to your Azure environment. The VPN connection will be established to the VNet-01, USEA2 virtual network. You need to create the required resources in Azure, for the planned site-to-site VPN. The solution must minimize costs. What should you do from the Azure portal? Arrange the following steps in correct sequence. The correct sequence will be, step 4, then 3, then 2, and then 1. Question 37. You are evaluating the name resolution for the virtual machines, after the planned implementation of the Azure networking infrastructure. For the following statement, select yes, if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. The virtual machines on client subnet will be able to register the host name records in the humongous insurance.local.zone. Yes, the statement is correct. Question 38. Suppose you create a new VM with a single OS disk and a single data disk. You use the default options when you create the VM. You don't have an Azure Key Vault set up in your subscription. Which option most accurately describes the encryption state of those disks? 1. The OS disk is encrypted using storage service encryption. The data disk is unencrypted. 2. Both disks are unencrypted. 3. Both disks are encrypted using storage service encryption. The correct answer is 3. All disks are encrypted using SSE by default. With SSE, Azure manages the keys, and automatically decrypts data, for any read operations without impact on performance. Question 39. You have a medium-sized application with modest I/O requirements. However, you need to ensure that a throughput of 25 MB per second is guaranteed. What disk type should you use? 1. Premium SSD. 2. Standard SSD. 3. Standard HDD. The correct choice will be Premium SSD. Standard tier disks don't guarantee a minimum throughput. For such a guarantee, use Premium SSD disks. Question 40. Which configuration is required to configure an internal load balancer? 1. Virtual machines should be in the same virtual network. 2. Virtual machines must be publicly accessible. 3. Virtual machines must be in an availability set. The correct answer is 1. The virtual machines, that you use a load balancer to distribute a load to, must be in the same virtual network. For more such videos, subscribe to our channel.